Okay, take 50,000,001. Welcome to Mission Indy Possible. Today I'm going to be talking about inexpensive camera bodies. And when I say inexpensive, I don't mean because they're garbage. I mean because they all share one thing in common. And that's they either have some pre-existing damage or wear to them that either I have to fix or I have to live with. And it's allowed me to try over 20 bodies that range from low end to high end. So I have three with me today. That would be the Canon T2i, which its defect and damage was, there's a scratch on the bottom part, which doesn't really mean anything, I'm just noting it. And then the back screen has a crack in the plastic protective part. Now, it's not the LCD, and if it were, you could get a whole new back maybe for $20, a used back. And if you felt confident enough, you could go ahead and just replace the whole backside of the camera. But as it is, for $5, I got a plastic screen. I'm going to use a razor blade. I'm going to pry out the old screen, and I'll have fixed that cosmetic issue. And for under $90, including lens, memory card, battery, charger, and everything, I'll have a fully functioning camera that can record 24p. It can do magic lanterns, so you could film some things with it. It's not a top-of-the-line camera or the newest one, but it does have a lot of functionality. I also have a Olympus EM1 Mark I, and this one was a little more complicated because its rear thumb dial only functioned intermittently. And the solution to that was to unscrew the back and spray in some contact cleaner. So I've been taking probably over 500 pictures with this one since I've cleaned out the contact, and all that required was I removed the grips, took out maybe 10 screws, and popped the back open and sprayed contact cleaner, electrical contact cleaner, not just any old contact cleaner. It's a specialized contact cleaner, but that only runs about $10 at Home Depot. So this one I always wanted to try because it has phase detect and it has contrast detect. I've got to try an EM5 Mark II, and it only had contrast detection. So the autofocus, even though the video was great and the size was amazing, this T2i had better autofocus than a camera that was 4 times its price, the EM5 Mark II. This T2i, I think it has phase detect in it, and it's just more accurate and faster. It doesn't hunt, and right now it just has a kit lens on it. My EM5 Mark II had an aftermarket of 1.8 on there, but it's 2 times crop. Anyways, so I fixed the rear thumb dial, and the eye cup part is just a cosmetic thing that I don't mind. And you gain in-body stabilization. And if that thumb dial hadn't worked, you can also get a battery grip, which has 2 dials on it that can be programmed, as well as a couple of buttons. So if that failed to fix, if the contact cleaner failed to fix that rear dial, I could have just used the dials on the battery grip, and I saved probably $150 just by choosing a camera that had something that I might be able to live with or fix, and I didn't be able to fix it. It is bigger than this APS-C camera, this T2i. You do get in-body stabilization, so even though it initially looks smaller, it becomes bigger, but then it's another trade-off because you don't have a flash on it, and the battery is a lot smaller, so the battery life is a lot less. But there's also a third camera I have here, which is a Nikon D4. This D4, its defects are that the shutter didn't always work because of the mirror charging the whole assembly. One of the gears in there was missing 2 teeth, and so because this was missing a couple of teeth inside of the part that made the mirror raise and lower, it kept coming up with an error. The other problem was that the mode lock right over here, the mode lock on here, it doesn't function. The mode lock part, I don't mind at all. It may be just because I don't understand it. But we're talking about something that came with a manual, box, everything that it originally had. And this one was probably $800 cheaper than when that was brand new. Now you have to keep in mind that I actually had to fix things to make it work properly, but it's a professional camera that has some modular pieces inside. So the way I solved the broken gear inside was I popped open the camera, I pulled out the mirror charging part of the camera, and that one gear, I cut out a small square of the gear. I made a photocopy of the gear. I bought a piece of polycarbonate from Home Depot for a few dollars. I super glued that polycarbonate piece into the section of the gear, and I used a jigsaw to go, or a scroll saw actually. I used a scroll saw to cut out those 2 extra teeth. After I cut out those 2 extra teeth, I had a fully functioning camera. Now, you know, the grips are not perfectly tight. They're not terrible, but they're not perfectly tight. And I still have that mode lock that doesn't work. But we're talking about camera bodies ranging from low to high that are substantially cheaper than a brand new or even a used one. And I've tried over 20 different bodies. I've tried 5D Mark II. I've tried 2 of those. I've tried D 60, 70, 80, 90, 200, 300. Not the 300S yet, but a D700, a D7000, D7001, 750, 2 D4s. The one before this one had over 400,000 shutter count on it. But I got it so cheap that when I even looked at it as a parts camera, it was cheaper than a broken parts camera. And even if I had to buy 2 parts cameras, I could have put them together and still made one functioning camera cheaper than I could have bought a brand new camera. And not only that, I learned some of the things of how it functions and how to repair it. So I run into a lot of, you know, DIY type stuff and end up learning a bunch of things. And whether it's the functionality of the camera or that I just don't like the camera. Now I'll come to the Nikon D5100, and I bought that one because I thought it looked like it'd be a good camera to flip. Because after I flip the camera, it allows me to buy a more expensive camera to try, or a couple more expensive cameras to try. So I don't have to necessarily want to live with it forever. But when I first bought a camera, I was looking for the last camera I was ever going to purchase. And with that in mind, it just wasn't possible because I wanted the newest, best thing, and that needed the newest, best lenses, the newest, best everything. And then all of a sudden, something comes along, and that's it. It's no longer the newest or the best or the anything. And that's before I could even afford the best lens for it. So this way I got to try out a bunch of different styles of it, APS-C, Micro Four Thirds, all different kinds of brands, cameras, and different things. And I'm looking for weather sealed things, for professional things, for things that if I have to get stuck with it, I can live with that. I had a D600 that had a problem where the readout in the eye, the EVF, it didn't work. And I kept trying to sell it after I tried it. I really liked it, but I wanted something with a faster focus, more focus points. And this D4, I had bought a D4, and I ended up having to sell a D4 and a D750 because I couldn't get rid of this 600. And I didn't want to keep fixing it and change that EVF. I had changed out a couple of buttons and the flash and it hadn't functioning that far. But I didn't want to change out this readout part, but I ended up having to do that. And then I was able to sell it. I didn't make any money off of it, but I got to try some disassembly for that. So I've decided that I choose certain bodies because not only do I get to try a different camera, but they're ones that if I have to live with and keep and can't sell, I might be okay with that. So if you want to try that, look for a broken camera. And I don't mean something with water damage, because you never know if water damage just fried the whole thing. Or when I got the EM5 Mark II, the terrible thing about that one was it was just missing a battery door, really. It had a lot of outside, it was rough on the outside, but on the inside the camera was fantastic, except it had no battery door. And an EM5 Mark II battery door was over $45 just for the battery door. So if you're going to buy a camera, look at what it's going to cost to repair it, because if you don't want to keep it, other people aren't going to want to buy a camera that's just garbage. So don't buy garbage cameras. Buy something that you would want to keep, that you would want to try. And after you've tried it, pass it on to somebody else and let them see what it is that they like out of it.